The Reggies. I've been thinking about them a lot lately. Is this because one of my most recent videos was a video essay on the Reggies? Pfft, no. After a while, I began thinking about all the potential the Reggies had. Mysterious elemental golems sealed away in chambers for unknown reasons. So let's make way more to terrorize these citizens. So in this video, I designed a new Regi for the 12 that don't already have one. Why so many in one video? Because I hate myself, that's why. That's a joke for legal reasons. For these designs, I really wanted to make something that both seemed like it would be made by Gamefreak, but also unlike the other dozens of fan-made Reggies, since I want mine to stand out at least a little bit. But with no further ado, let's jump right in. Let's start with, well, the starter types. Regi Fire was the first one I designed. It is pretty simple yet effective. One of the most common kind of fire-type Reggies I see is ones made of magma or lava, which really pisses me off. It really grinds my gears anytime I see it, because it's literally stated that Regi Seal was made from magma. Another common idea is destructive wildfire, but fire in the real world isn't only destructive. In fact, it's quite necessary for many plants to thrive. Some pine cones even require fire in order to release their seeds, and that isn't the only way fire can allow life to thrive. After all, the sun, a giant ball of fire, is what allows life on Earth to exist in the first place. Not me though, I live inside this video you're watching. Despite all this, fire still needs fuel to keep going, so it isn't all good either. It's a perfect balance, a yin and yang, if you will. And I really wanted to reflect that in this design. The balance part, not the yin and yang. So I also gave it lots of soft curves, almost to resemble the flame on a candle. Also, a non-solid Regi, like Regi needs something to hold it together. This is a common theme that you'll see for many of the designs in this video, but for this one I made it a small, humble rock, to reference eternal flames, the most recognizable being Eternal Flame Falls in New York. These are formed by underground gases seeping up through cracks in the ground and igniting when they reach the surface. Some of these have been burning for thousands of years, which I just think is neat. So here is Regi Fire, a fire type with the ability Fueling Flame. This Pokemon converts any and all matter it touches into fuel. Even large quantities of water cannot douse its flame, only making it grow stronger. The only way to truly extinguish its flame is to place it in a vacuum where it cannot fuel itself. The stone at this Pokemon's waist is enchanted to not be consumed, but rather to restrain it. The land touched by its flames seemed to grow plants quicker after being engulfed. The ability Fueling Flame makes Regiflame get a special attack boost whenever it's hit by a super effective move or a fire type move. However, if it's hit by a grass type move instead, it gains a +2 special attack boost as a reference to how it's consuming anything that comes in contact with it. You know, plants are really, really flammable, notoriously. That's why wildfires exist and why we use wood for campfires. Next up is the water type Regi. The most common type of water Regi I've seen is usually just a wave of some sort, or some kind of water elemental to that extent. But there's not anything wrong with that, I just think it's a little overdone. Either that or melting Regi ice. I decided to go for a slightly different route instead. What I did was I made it bubbles. This way I can make it two visually distinct materials, the flowing, sloshing water and the round and floaty bubbles. I also gave it this cool dripping effect with the bubbles, which gives it even more movement than it already had. It would be a very mobile Pokemon, rushing around the battlefield without a care in the world. I can also make one large bubble a distinct head. On top of that, I can also make some bubbles different shades to introduce 3 unique colors, kind of like what Regirock has. The water bubbles at the bottom of its body almost look like a king's robe, as this is a king of the ocean, being legendary after all, but it also resembles a waterfall. And while there are some theories that the Reggies are all based on ages in human history, there just isn't enough ages to go around, nor is there one that would fit every type. I mean, like, what would the poison age be? The bubonic plague? Because of that, I chose not to have them all be represented by one. Some, like this one though, will have one, as Regi Water represents the age of exploration, where the primary source of travel for said exploration was sea travel with giant boats. So here is Regi Water, a water type with the ability Flash Flood. This Pokemon was found sealed in a chamber near a beach. This Pokemon's body can swell to enormous sizes if it absorbs enough water, but will slowly shrink in size if in dry areas. Regi Water is said to be kind to those who treat the ocean with care, but show no mercy to those who harm it. The bubbles produced by this Pokemon will not pop no matter how much pressure is applied. The ability Flash Flood kind of works like a combination between Storm Drain and Dry Skin, making it immune to water-type moves, redirect them into itself and gain a special attack boost if this occurs, as well as gaining HP in the rain but losing HP in harsh sunlight. The final of the 3 starter types is Grass. The obvious design choice I could have gone for is a large tree, but that's boring, so I didn't do that. Instead, I struggled back and forth between designs because I want to be different so bad. Great. Instead of going down the easy path, I decided to go back to that ages idea and make this Regi based off of the age of agriculture. To show this, I made it resemble a stalk of wheat sprouting from a seed with thorny root arms coming out of said seed. I went back and forth between different crops, but I felt like some sort of grain represented the grass type best. It's also one of the few very vertical Regis. Almost all of the other ones have quite stocky builds. Out of all the ones I've made here, this one's probably the weakest design-wise, because aside from the dots on its face, it hardly looks like a legendary Titan. But you can only do so much, right? I feel like its body shape is more unique than the others, but other than that, this one's kind of the black sheep of the Regi family. Regi Grass, a grass type with the ability Harvest. This Pokemon is said to be a seed planted by Regigigas eons ago. It is rather benevolent, teaching humans how to grow their own food long, long ago. It plants its root-like arms into the ground to grow. It has the ability to either grow entire forests or reduce them to dust by absorbing all the tree's nutrients. It has a signature move called Parasite Vine, a 75 base power grass-type move that heals the user for 75% of the damage dealt, as well as dealing super effective damage to grass-type Pokemon. You might notice that, unlike the others I've made thus far, Regi Grass has a signature move instead of a signature ability. This is mostly because making a signature ability for 12 Pokemon here is kind of a lot, so half will have signature moves, while the other half will have signature abilities to keep things fresh. Moving away from the starter types, next up is Psychic. Regi Psy was probably one of my favorite designs in this whole bunch. In fact, it was the first one I made before I even decided to do this video. Most people, when making a Psychic type Regi, make it a brain or some sort of nervous system, or at least something like that. I've always thought that was cool, but overdone, so I began looking for other things that the Psychic type represented, and I decided on space. After all, plenty of Psychic Pokemon come from space. Think Elgium and Beheeyem, Deoxys, Lunatone, and Solrock. In fact, the only alien Pokemon I can think of that aren't Psychic type are the Clefairy line and the Ultra Beasts. And even then, the legendary Pokemon of Ultra Space, Solgaleo, Lunala, and Necrozma are Psychic type. Even non-alien Pokemon with connections to space are Psychic type, like the Gothitelle line. So, space it is. There isn't really any physical material that really screamed space to me, though, unless you could cart dark matter, but I don't really count dark matter because we don't really know what it is. I did, however, eventually land on Stardust, or Nebulas. This is a Regi I made entirely out of Stardust. It is shaped like a planet, with both its arms looking like a crescent moon, and rings on the planet. On top of that, the spiky crown it has and the pointy legs somewhat resemble the poles on a protostar. Yes, they're much smaller than the actual poles on a protostar, but shut up, okay? Let me have this. This is Regi Psy, a Psychic type with the ability Magic Guard. This Pokemon was born when Regigigas sculpted Stardust. It is unclear whether this is Regigigas' oldest or youngest creation. Its body is made of swirling space material, and give Regi Psy the ability to expand or contract its body. It lives in the stratosphere, peacefully drifting till all things end. It has a new move called Stardust Shot, a 100 base power Psychic type move that deals more damage to non-grounded Pokemon, which is to say flying type Pokemon, Pokemon with the ability Levitate, or Pokemon holding an air balloon. It can also hit Pokemon on the invincible turn of Fly and Bounce, dealing more damage to them as well as knocking them out of the sky, so they kinda just wasted a turn. Keeping up with the trend of types that don't really have a physical form to base them off of, let's just get them out of the way. Dark is up next. For this Regi, I really wanted it to be... what was I doing again? Oh, right, I was recording the Regi video. Um, let's see what type is next. Oh yeah, fighting. Regi Fight was a really tricky one. I didn't want to do just a flesh golem or homunculus because that's way overdone, and also that's really gross. I was really stumped for a good while and got a good idea once I gave in and asked one of my friends, who said I should make it a fighting spirit, similar to Lucario's aura. I thought that was a great idea. So, that's what I did. I made it blue and yellow, with the blue referencing Lucario's aura and the yellow referencing Goku's Super Saiyan aura. The Dragon Ball references don't stop there though, as I also gave it the pose Goku goes when he goes Super Saiyan for the first time. And if any of this Dragon Ball stuff is wrong, please don't get mad at me, I haven't actually seen it yet. Like I mentioned for Regi Fire, Regi Fight is made of pure energy, and thus has its own restraints. This one, however, is meant to look like a wrestling belt, as well as referencing the trope of people having extremely heavy training weights on, and taking them off mid-fight for a power boost and insane aura. First thing that comes to mind here is Rock Lee. Again, don't get me wrong, I haven't seen Naruto. So here is Regi Fight, a fighting type Pokemon with the ability Fighting Spirit. This Pokemon is made from distilled fighting spirit and pure determination. It can throw 300 punches per second and even more without its restraint belt. This Pokemon can adapt to any style of fighting instantly. When people or Pokemon are near Regi Fight, their willpower is increased tenfold. Its ability, Fighting Spirit, makes Regi Fight takes half damage from the type of move it was most recently hit by. Say you were hit with a flamethrower. Now, Regi Fight has a resistance to fire-type moves. Hit Regi Fight with Hydro Pump, now it's resistant to water-type moves. Regi Psy might be my favorite design-wise, but this is definitely my favorite flavor-wise. To finish up the hardest types to make Regis from, Ghost. Despite the fact that we somewhat know what ghosts and spirits look like in the Pokemon world, I didn't want to just do that. Instead, what I decided to do was a little more physical. In Pokemon, the Ghost type has a weird obsession with old fabric. Think the Reaper Cloth, or Pokemon like Mimikyu, Shuppet, or Honedge with those weird cloth arm things. So for this Pokemon design, I really wanted to make it a voodoo doll. It wouldn't be the first time Pokemon did something like this with Bayonet. However, since that's kind of a weak concept, as if the Reggies barely had any concept to begin with, I also combined it with Frankenstein's monster, with the big, hulking body, nails, or in this case sewing needles, in the head, which also goes back to reference voodoo dolls, and the patchwork body looking like parts from different bodies from Frankenstein. It also has a very static pose, almost looking like it's waiting for its master to give it orders. So here's Regi Ghost, a ghost type with the ability In Sync. This Pokemon was a mistake by Regigigas when it attempted to sculpt souls from the dead. It is completely motionless until given an order. Regi Ghost seems to have no will of its own, only carrying the will of its master. Anyone who harms this Pokemon will find themselves harmed as well. Its ability In Sync makes it so that whenever Regi Ghost takes damage from a contact move, a quarter of the damage that would have gone to Regi Ghost would instead be inflicted upon the attacker, going into its voodoo doll inspiration more. Next up is Fairy, and even though the Fairy type doesn't really represent a physical element, other than light, I guess, I found this design pretty easy. The thing about the Fairy type Regis that I've seen is that they're just so varied. I have seen everything from biblically accurate angels to literal gingerbread men. But for this, I really wanted to go back to Fairy's roots. Fairies. More specifically, I'm going to base it off the fairies from the Zelda series, like Navi with the little body made of light and 4 large insectoid wings. However, here the wings are much, much larger than the main body. Speaking of the body, it's actually very small. It's the smallest Regi, in fact, only being about 2 feet tall. Despite this, it's just as powerful as the others, only its power is more concentrated. Also, remember when I said the Fairy type is kind of the light type? Well, that works for this one as well, too, as its actual body is made entirely out of light and its wings make it kind of look like a sparkling, twinkling star. So here is Regi Fay, a Fairy type with the ability Healer. This Pokemon is made from light itself. It has total dominion over light, being able to make any area brighter or darker. It is fairly benevolent and offers its light to those in need. However, should someone insult Regi Fay, they will never return. It has a signature move called Blinding Light, a fairy-type status move that lowers both opponents' accuracy, but in exchange, it itself only has 80% accuracy, so, it can't run wild and snowball all on its own. The next type on the chopping block is Poison, and although Poison does have a physical form, kind of, I had a really hard time going about this. Even though there are definitely poison elementals in Pokemon, like Muk and Weezing, most poison-type Pokemon are animals with some sort of venom, toxin, or poison in or on them. So for making an elemental golem, I really had two ways to go about this: toxic sludge or toxic gas. And while gas might be a little bit more unique, I decided against it because, spoiler, both the water and flying type Regi are pretty cloudy, and if I went that route, this one would be too. So toxic sludge it is. However, to differentiate it from Muk and Grimer more, I gave it a more interesting silhouette. I gave it these bubbling cysts and sharp debris poking out. The debris in particular is really interesting, as the way I place them, as well as the placement of the Fates dots, make it kind of look like a skull and crossbones, a common symbol used for poisons or dangerous chemicals, at least in media. I also wanted all the Reggies to have a similar yet unique body plan, with them all having strong upper bodies, large arms, and small legs. This keeps up the trend, as well as taking it a step further, with it going as far as to walk on its arms, while its stubby little legs dangle there. So, here is Regi Poison, a poison type with the ability Toxic Debris. This Pokemon is made from pollution and dangerous chemicals. It is one of Regigigas' youngest creations, as it was made to clean up humanity's waste, but as they made more and more, its purpose became a lost cause. Simply being near Regi Poison is dangerous. Its corrosive body burns any organic material that touches it. It has a signature move called Chemical Burn, a poison-type physical move that, as the name suggests, has a 100% chance to burn the target. Next up on our list is Dark. This one is kind of tricky for its own reason, because while lots of other Dark-type Reggies are super unique, there isn't really any consistent theme between them. So for my Regi Dark, I really wanted to... Jeez, I just got the worst deja vu of my life. Oh crap, is this still recording? Must have fallen asleep while I was making a video. Weird. Well, I guess I'll just finish the ground type, in theory, should be super easy. It's one of the only remaining types that has a well-defined physical form, that being mostly loose dirt, sand, clay, and the like. The only real difficulty is making it look different enough from Regirock, which should be easy as it's rocks versus smaller rocks. The difficulty in this came from trying to decide if I wanted mine to be dirt or sand. I had a pretty good and fleshed out idea for both, but I ended up going with sand because the idea for dirt and sediment was pretty much identical to everyone else's Regi Ground. Instead, my approach to the sand was unorthodox, in my opinion. The idea was that I wanted it to be a living pile of sand, or a sand dune. How I went about this was also giving it legs, was that I gave it a solid bottom half of its torso and legs, while the rest of its body was made from shifting sand. Something that I was really proud of when I thought this up was that I could make the sand that was falling off the rock its arms. The only real gripe I have with this is that it doesn't look all that serious, and the rocky foundation kind of looked like a giant diaper, which isn't really cool, but every group of anything really needs to have at least one silly and goofy one, right? Regi Ground, a ground type with the ability Sand Body. This Pokemon is made from ever-shifting sand. Strong enough winds can blow the sand off its body, but it can recover this by piling more sand on top of itself. This Pokemon can stir up devastating sandstorms simply by walking. The desert cavern it calls home has been all smoothed out, as if Regi Ground turned the very walls that contained it into sand. The ability's Sand Body is pretty similar to the abilities Rain Dish and Ice Body, making it restore HP when a sandstorm is active. Regi Fly is one of the designs I'm most proud of within this collection. Well, yes, the flying type is effectively the bird type, encompassing everything that can fly. It also represents air itself, with moves like Air Slash and Hurricane being flying type. I considered making a tornado, but that was surprisingly difficult. Instead, I settled on a simple, fluffy cloud. That's not all though. Since the flying type is like 80% birds, I wanted to include some bird-like features. So the large cloud-like arms stretched out on either side are very reminiscent of bird wings. Its tiny little fleet and torso also make Regi Fly somewhat bird-like, but without the inclusion of a beak, or a face for that matter, makes this Pokemon somewhat uncanny, like something's missing. The dot pattern resembles a swirling storm. I didn't realize until I finished drawing that it actually looks a lot like Togekiss, especially with the primarily white color scheme, but that isn't exactly a bad thing, right? What else can I really say about this? It's simple, but a good part of its charm comes from its simplicity. After all, clouds are generally pretty simple. One pretty interesting idea about this, though, is that I actually drew this one on a plane while we were flying through some really fluffy clouds. So if you happen to be in the sky for some reason, beware Regi Fly, a flying type with the ability Wind Rider. Rather than being sealed away in a temple, Regi Fly was sealed inside a never-ending storm. It was sealed away after a hurricane it created reduced a major city to rubble. This Pokemon is prone to frequent mood swings, being a gentle breeze one moment and a violent storm the next. It has the ability to control the weather within a 75-mile radius around itself. It has a signature move, Weather War, which is effectively a more powerful but less accurate version of Weather Ball that also hits both opponents instead of just one. Our penultimate type is... Bug. Listen, I love the Bug type. Bug Month was epic. A good amount of my favorite Pokemon are Bug types. Volcarona, Araquanid, Golisopod, Scolipede, Galvantula, Ribombee, and others are all some of my top Pokemon of all time. However, the Bug type is self-contained. Many Pokemon could easily be seen as having a third type, like how Gyarados could easily be seen as Water Flying Dragon, or here Spiritomb could be Ghost Dark Rock. The Bug type is almost never one of those types you can just slap onto a pre-existing dual-type Pokemon. The only one I could think of that would make sense is Flygon being a ground dragon Bug type. This is also why the Bug type is always the hardest one to make for an every type video. Because it just doesn't make sense. Either you're a bug or not a bug, it's simple as that. For this challenge I set a rule for myself, not using any living tissue for any Pokemon. That's a big reason why I didn't want to make a flesh golem for Regi Fight, so I don't want this to just be a bug. Instead I had two ideas for what I could possibly do. A spiderweb or a beehive. So which one did I go with? Neither! And the last minute I decided to make it a bug encased in amber. Yes, I know that amber is tree sap, so grass, that has been turned into stone, so rock, so it's not really amber, but I can't not do it. Bugs are so intrinsically connected to amber, I can't not do it. It also works well with the Reggies being ancient golems. Bugs notoriously have short lifespans, so spiderwebs and beehives don't tend to last very long, compared to, you know, a rock, or permafrost, or electricity, or crystallized dragon energy. Okay, they don't all have to be centuries old, alright? Being made of amber also gives it a fun, unique silhouette, being nice and smooth instead of all rugged like the others. It also has an antennae and another arm, or another set of arms, sorry, because, you know, it's an insect, they have 6 limbs. So here is Regi Bug, a bug type with the ability Swarm. This Pokemon was said to have been created in an era where bugs ruled the earth. Its amber shell makes it able to shrug off most attacks, but it also restricts its movements. It can command swarms of insects that can shred entire fields of crops in minutes. If it ever begins to deteriorate, it can heal itself with tree sap. It has a signature move called Amburst, which is a bug-type explosive move that hits 3 to 5 times and damages the user for every hit. And finally, we have the Dark-type Regi. For this one, I had a really interesting idea. While most other people's Dark-type Regis are creepy demons, mine is a literal shadow. Because of this, it can... What was I doing? I can't remember, but I feel like I've been here before, done this before. And that's a Regi for every type. Or is it? That's right, there's even more Reggies here because a while ago I challenged my Discord server to make up Reggies of their own. And here's what they came up with. Dark type Regi Void by the Lulgan. There's Bug type Regi Pest by Conic. Water type Regi Flow by the Last Golden Soldier. Poison type Regicide by Credit Card. And Psychic type Regi Astral. And now we're done. This video was a ton of work. Making a whole 11 designs for one video was not the greatest. I do not recommend it, but I hope you enjoyed. Join my Discord, follow me on Instagram, both in the description, you know the works. And with that, I'm going back into my hole now. Bye-bye!